I want to welcome everyone to today's series called Generative Entrepreneur. It's a series where our business leaders and technical developers will learn how to accelerate their generative AI applications to the marketplace and to deploy them to production at scale. My name is Jason Virtue, and I work at Microsoft. I am a principal partner solution architect, and I work within the Global Partner Solutions team here at Microsoft. I'm also one of our global AI and ML community leads within our community, and I help our employees, our partners, and our customers with generative AI readiness and adoption. So I really love to work with you and share some of the things that I know. In today's session, we really want to show you a demonstration of the Microsoft Copilots that are out in our ecosystem. We'll give you an idea about all the different Copilots that are available to you, but we will not demonstrate all of them. We will demonstrate the ones that are related to the generative AI journey. This is a discussion we had in the last session that I'll bring up again to help you understand the stages that you can leverage in your learning journey on generative AI. And we'll be going through a demonstration and showing you the tools around Microsoft 365 Copilot, the Copilot Studio, and Azure AI Studio. At the very end, we'll share with you our learning resources so you can understand how you can start to accelerate your learning journey. When it comes to Microsoft Copilot, we have a Copilot experience across the entire ecosystem. And at the heart of this pinwheel is the Microsoft Copilot that crosses many different solution areas within the Microsoft platform. We can see the platforms when we start talking about the developer experience, operating systems, business applications, modern work, data and AI, and browser and search. But if we go one circle out, we now see the different products that we share and our end users leverage on a daily basis. And within those platforms, we can see the different applications that run. Now, when it comes to this pinwheel, we can see that there is a plenitude of many different copilots that are out there in the ecosystem. And we don't plan on doing a demonstration in today's session of every one of them. What we hope to do is highlight some really important ones that will help you along your generative AI journey. The ones that we'll highlight today is the data and AI, and in there we'll highlight Azure AI Studio, the developer experience with Copilot Studio, and the modern work with Microsoft 365. We'll actually start off with the Microsoft 365 Copilot. We'll jump into the Copilot Studio, and then we'll do the Azure AI Studio. This is what we'll highlight and do our demonstrations against. And as we said, there is a number of generative AI solutions. And this video montage shows you some key ones that sit out there, be it through Word or PowerPoint or Outlook or Bing, or even in great tools such as VS Code with GitHub Copilot. These are going to be where you can start to use Azure AI assistants to power your generative AI work that you do on a daily basis. Now, what I hope to do is not to show you a video of everything, but a video on these three core phases that we'll have. As we talked about in our last discussion, we talked about three phases or stages that we can go through on our generative AI journey. This was a learning journey where we can first adopt copilots, then extend them, and then build them. And what we were wanting you to understand is what are the tools that you're going to be leveraging and what are those learning objectives. This way, we can do some show and tell and show you guys how this works and hopefully demonstrate the value of this process to you. Now, in that first phase of Adopt Copilot, what we're really going to be leveraging is a Microsoft 365 Copilot that sits out there. You could also, if you needed to, use GitHub Copilot, and let me tell you, great tool to leverage Dynamics 365 or security copilots. All of these copilots will help you out. We'll focus on the Microsoft 365 Copilot. And the learning objectives that we hope you to understand as you're going along on that journey is first and foremost, prompt engineering. That's going to be a very critical success factor in your journey so you can start to understand how you can start to design different prompts from a prompt engineering technique. Also helps you understand how you can start to write different styles of prompt engineering techniques. And lastly, some of the do's and don'ts. Now, that's just helping you with prompt engineering. It also will help you with the user experience. And for anybody who's going to be building these applications, you really need to understand what your end user is leveraging. And you can see how Microsoft is starting to provide different designs to help address some of the needs of their end users. And lastly, and I think most importantly, you can start to understand the technical limitations of the product and understand what you need and what you don't. As you learn those limitations, then you'll start to realize how you can extend those copilots and why you would want to extend those copilots. And here we'll bring in the Copilot Studio to demonstrate that task, and more importantly, to highlight how we can start to augment those copilots with new data sources. And those data sources now will start to provide new context into our prompt that will help keep our models grounded and provide reliable information. And lastly, we can then start to build our copilots. That build phase is going to be very complex. This is going to be more of our advanced stage. And this is where we'll be using our Azure AI Studio, the suite of tools that help us with generative AI, machine learning, and artificial intelligence, and help us from a multimodal perspective. And that suite of tools out there, we'll highlight some of those in this talk, and will help you start to realize from a learning objective what are some of the LLM ops capabilities that you'll need. Also will help you understand how we can start to evaluate those models and select the best models. And we will be showing some of the models available to you in that model catalog. So this is a journey we'll be on today, and what we'll start to show you in the overall demonstrations that we'll have out there. What we'll really try to prevent is the Mystery Science Theater 3000 demonstration, where we show you a lot of video but no hands-on live demonstrations. Hopefully we won't have Clippy or Cortana coming out giving us their snarky comments, but if you are not going with this reference, I highly recommend to you while I'm talking to go to Bing Copilot and look this one up, and you could understand that reference a little bit better. So let's jump in first and foremost into our very first Copilot, and that's the Microsoft 365 Copilot. I think what's in the box is very important to understand. This is the adopt phase where you will be going in and starting to learn what is prompt engineering, what's the user experience available to my customer, and also what is the limitations of the platform. What's in the box is also critical here, because this is going to help you understand why you might need to start to adapt and extend those models in the future when using Copilot Studio. So in this box for Microsoft 365, we talk about large language models. And large language models is not the only thing available. We just don't plug in a large language model to everything. Large language models are going to be the starter kit, but we will also need things such as Microsoft Graph, the data around Microsoft 365 applications, and the webs. That web data is going to be critical. Now, when we talk about that natural language processing that we do through these 4 different capabilities, I now will do a little show and tell so you can understand that further. And now we're going to do a demonstration of Microsoft 365 Copilot. As you can see here from this overall application, we have the ability to both ask questions on the web and in our work environments. And more importantly, as we ask those questions, we can see this information is protected. This data will not be leveraged in building or training our generative AI models, nor will it be used for fine-tuning those models. Now, what's great about this application as we get started, you can see it's prompting us or giving us some suggestions on some different prompts that we can use to organize our cells, to focus on different types of information, to manage the work that we have to do. And these are different prompts that we can start to leverage as needed. Also, we have different ways that we can ask Copilot to respond to us. We can ask them to be balanced and trusted. We can ask them to be creative, or we can ask them to be very precise. And those conversational styles will be very important as we go forward in understanding our copilots. Now, when we talk about this adopt phase and some of the learning objectives, one of the things that we really want to highlight is prompt engineering. So let me give you an example of a good prompt here. I'm actually at work right now, and before I get started for the day, I really like to learn a little bit more about quantum computing. And when it comes to quantum computing, I want to see what the system can provide to me. Now, what's great about the Copilot and the Microsoft 365 Copilot is it's going across the internet now and looking at many different sources of information and summarizing that data for me. My prompt, what is quantum computing, was pretty generic, pretty high level. So when we get a response, it's pretty open-ended. It could have touched just about everything, from quantum mechanics to speed and capacity to applications. Informative, and as we can see, a ton of great references. Now, as we state, this is a Copilot, so what we want to see is how accurate is some of this information. But before we do the accuracy, let's actually expand upon this prompt and get it a little bit more richer than maybe what we had in the past. Now, when we talk about providing an executive summary on quantum computing, we're starting to set the expectations of the model on how to summarize that. And then, from a context perspective, we want it to provide the definition, the latest advancements, the benefits and challenges, and we want it to, from a style perspective, think of this as a computer science college student. Now, let's see what comes back from this particular prompt. But we really want you to understand that when writing these prompts, there will be different styles that we'll want to leverage. And this is now starting to give us a great set of definitions, benefit, challenges, and in a very high level format. Now, hopefully this is starting to make some sense to you. Prompt engineering will have different techniques we can leverage, some different styles such as this, and also some do's and don'ts. And we hope as you're using Microsoft 365 Copilot, you can start to understand those. So let's go in now to the work profile. That work profile we want to leverage to help us understand our daily business. When it comes to my business, I work for Contoso, and we're a protein shake company. And what I want to understand is how my business is doing. I'm going to send into the work profile a question so we can start to see how my overall business is going for this week. When we send out a question, we're going to say, find and compile information on Contoso's new protein shake offering. So we'll let it go out there and ask those questions. More importantly, compile and get that information. And we'll then see what comes back. As a prompt engineer, you'll see that it's going out and finding information within my Microsoft 365 tenant. It's going out there and compiling information both from reports that I have and also from the web. And we can see that myself and Reba are both two people who have information on this market trend report. And we can also see some information that sits there on the web on Costco. Now, if we look at this, that prompt and its response really wasn't that rich. And if we do want to get a more rich prompt, let's go through those prompt engineering techniques I talked about earlier. What I'm going to do here is type in and bring in a prompt. That prompt that I want to leverage is going to be highlighting some of the different sections of our prompt engineering techniques. When we typically want to do a prompt, we want to first and foremost define the context. Here we said, hey, find and compile information on Contoso's new Protein Plus. But the context that we wanted to provide is for an upcoming quarterly business review. We need an executive summary as well as details on the social media campaign and the competing products. That really helped it understand what it needs to provide. Next, we provide the sources. Look for information in the market analysis and the Mystic Premium Chai documents, plus in our T-Market trends and in our market trend report. And we want to, in the end, from an expectation perspective, provide an executive summary. And this summary should sound professional, hopeful, and about our release blockers. So let's put this in and see what we get back. Now we submitted that prompt, and we're waiting back for that response. And we're really trying to understand a little bit more about that Contoso new protein shake. But from a prompt engineering perspective, hopefully you're starting to understand the techniques that you can leverage, the style, and the do's and don'ts. And what we'll see shortly is a summary of our protein drinks. And it's looking at the Microsoft 365 ecosystem using Microsoft Graph and also the documents that are within Microsoft 365 to give us this executive summary as it's being built. Now, one of the key things, as you can see, as it's building this out, it's also leveraging different prompts, and I'll go through that here shortly. Now, this prompt comes back and gives us a great summary of the overall protein drink, some social media campaigns, the competitive analysis, and also providing us some data on that piece. It's also providing us those release blockers and giving us some detailed analysis and where it got that information. Now, one of the things I just will highlight is you can see that set of reference documents attached to this, and this will be the important piece. You'll want to validate this data. When it comes to the limitation of these models, what we got to realize is sometimes it's not well grounded, or sometimes what you got the first time might be a little bit different the second one. So validating that data and giving your thumbs up and thumbs down will really help out. Now, when we talk about the final piece here, let's start talking in this adopt phase of something a little bit more difficult for the Microsoft 365 platform to figure out. Let's bring in a question that states, list out the top 5 products from sales in 2023 based on unit sales, product name, and dollar amount in a tabular format. Now, we're using 3 different techniques we talked about: context, sources, and expectation in designing that prompt. But what we'll start to see is we're asking for a level of specificity of information that the platform does not have data for. And when it comes to unit sales and revenue, that's really not going to be stored, and hopefully it's not stored in your Microsoft 365 platform. So you're going to want to go out there and start to find that data in other locations. Here it's actually giving you a SQL statement to state that, hey, this is not in the Microsoft 365 platform. Maybe you need to look elsewhere. And that's where we'll transition into our second demonstration around Copilot Studio. Now we'll show you Copilot Studio, and Copilot Studio is currently in public preview. We can think of Copilot Studio as being a product that is attached to the Microsoft 365 platform and the Power Platform. It's a tool that allows us in that learning journey that we spoke of to now extend and provide greater capabilities. One thing Copilot Studio will help us with is connecting into data that can be in many different locations that are not native to Microsoft 365. And we can do that through plugins. We can also customize our Copilot to fit our different business needs and processes. Maybe there's workflows that we want to ensure that are being leveraged or looked up before jumping into them, or to control and manage and customize centrally that user experience. Now, we will give a demonstration of this, but we'll give a pre-recorded demonstration where we're looking at a skiing company that is trying to figure out its deliveries. I'll let it jump in and I'll give you a little bit of a narrative as it's going. Now we can see in this Copilot is part of our Power Apps platform, and we're asking about deliveries for next week. We can see it gave us the number, and we're asking now where, the location. And we're getting a lot of good information from this particular prompt. But when it comes to trying to figure out what time it might be delivered or what is the actual ETA, that might not be as easy to get. Because we know there's snowing conditions in those regions, we're trying to figure out the weather and start to get a better sense for where and how that might impact our delivery schedule. So what we'll do within Power Apps is go into this and build a workflow within Copilot Studio that'll help it focus on what is the trigger words or set of questions that it needs to determine what is the actual ETA of a given delivery. So we come up with a topic and we start to come up with different phrases that will trigger this particular routine on getting a delivery estimate. As you can see here, these are going to be typical questions that your user is going to be asking of the system, not the best prompts that sit out there from a user design perspective. That's important. We're going to translate what those phrases might mean in terms of an actual prompt that we want to submit into our large language models. So we'll put in what is our actual tracking number. And then we'll provide when is the actual estimate for its delivery. Now we're going to publish this, so this can be brought back into our platform. And as we publish this particular Copilot, we can then help augment the data and extend its capabilities within Copilot Studio. And what you'll see now is when we ask that question, a completely different user experience. Now, you can see it asks, where is my delivery? And it asks, what is your tracking number? You provide that tracking number, and now it provides that it will be coming in the next week. Now, what's really core about this experience is when our end user was asked these questions, they weren't really always able to get the right question. And what we wanted to provide is a response back to ask about the tracking number of that ski content. And this workflow is where Copilot came in. It helped us connect to that third-party data source for the tracking data and set up a workflow or set of topics that triggered this response from the system to ask you your tracking number and then submit it into our large language models for its response. Now, let's transition to that final phase of our learning journey, and that's the build phase. And what I really want to highlight here is the Azure AI Studio, and from a tooling perspective, really help you understand more about large language models and LLM ops. This is going to be a really critical learning journey. Also, it's going to be really critical is understanding the model catalog, what's available to you, and how do we evaluate those models. And this will be really that workflow I'll go through now. I think in this particular demonstration that I'll be giving you, it'll be a show and tell to share with you how unified the platform is, how we can use hybrid and semantic search, and also that development lifecycle. So let me jump in and do a little bit of show and tell on that one. So for this demonstration, we'll show you the Contoso Outdoor Company. This is a web application that was shared and showcased at Ignite. And when it comes to this application, it really shows us that developer experience. Now we can build a really rich web interface, a retail store a web page that'll help us with the ordering of different outdoor equipment. And we can see some great set of tents, backpack, hiking clothes, hiking footwear, more importantly, camping tables, and also stoves. Now, like any retail website, our user experience is not always optimal. And that sometimes drives a lot of Q&A and questions to our customer support channels and visits to retail stores so we can get a much richer and better set of questions answered for us versus trying to scroll and infer what's happening within those retail websites. Now, what we'll provide here within the actual generative AI system, we'll be providing in our large language model a chatbot experience. Here in this chatbot, I'll ask it a question. What are some of the jackets you would recommend? It's using the large language models and more importantly, the Azure AI Studio to provide those responses. And look at that response. It's given me a recommendation on the Summit Breeze jacket from Mountain Style. It's talking about its actual features that it has. It's giving me some emojis to help make me feel better about my purchase and asking if it can help me with anything else. Well, let's give it a little bit of a different question about tents. Let's ask a generic question that says, hey, can you give me some tents for beginners? And see what type of response that'll sit out here. Now, if you're looking at this, you can think of me talking to a store associate almost. give me the relevant topical information, and I, as a consumer who wants to make sure I'm making an informed decision, can start getting a much richer experience and ask some of those probing questions to get the information I need. Now, talk to me about two different tents I can use here, the Sky View and the Trail Master. And since I want a tent for 3 or 4 persons, let's see what it would recommend out of those two examples. In this case, it's actually recommending the Trail Master. Now, one of the things like I might always want to ask is not just, is this my best tent, but how do I maintain this tent long term? And what's nice about this system is we've gone out and indexed all the information within this platform, both the product manuals, the retail descriptions, the product descriptions, so that we can now start to provide some of that supporting information. So when it comes to how do I take care of my tent, it says always keep your tent dry before storing it, cleaning it with mild soap and water. Avoid harsh chemicals. This will be information that we can find in those product manuals that maybe the actual store employee knows really well. But in the old retail example, I would have to think some different keywords in there, and I might not necessarily get the information that I needed. Now, I'm going to finish off with a very generic question, and I'm going to say, what gear do you recommend for hiking? So let's see what it actually replies to. I think we can all agree as we build these copilots into our web applications for our different retail experiences, we can see as a benefit that will reduce the amount of traffic coming into our customer service channels, and we can maybe have more of our sales done on these web channels without them having to come into stores. Now, let's showcase not just this great Contoso outdoor application that sits out there, but let's also showcase the Azure AI Studio. As we talked about earlier, Azure AI Studio is a suite of tools that's available for you for artificial intelligence, machine learning, and generative AI. As you can see, here's the different tools that are within that suite of products that are available for you, and the Azure AI Studio platform will help you with those content. More importantly, it also has a suite of different models available to you. So when we start talking about generative AI and going out there and looking at different models that can be leveraged, maybe we want to look at some different meta models that sit out there. And we can see some of the different Llama models that sit out there. We can also look at the ones that are in the Azure OpenAI platform. And we can even look at different ones from Cohere or maybe even Microsoft Research. Key point is these are the models that you can leverage for your needs, and you do not have to use Azure OpenAI models. If you want to learn a little bit more about those models and start to compare them and look at some different benchmarks, you can even do that within the model catalog. But let me show you how I built that application. I created a project called Contoso Web Development, and this web application, I needed to start to experiment and understand how I can properly design those particular prompts. And so I used a tool in here called PromptFlow, and PromptFlow is a great tool for us to start to think about how to design and test out those different pieces. One thing about generative AI and large language models is the iterative nature of this exercise. You will not always know what is the best question or how best to frame it, or maybe what that response will be. And so we need to create different variants, or what we can think of in the old days as test cases, that will help us to go through and see how these models are actually performing. And we can see through each one of the different questions, bringing in our questions, our retrieval documents, our customer lookup information, how we design those prompts, and what are those responses. Why is this relevant? Well, in the end, we want to actually go out and start to evaluate those metrics. And that from a model evaluation perspective, we want to make sure that we give the best models to our customers. And to do that, we want to look at certain metrics, such as fluency, groundedness, relevance, and also coherence. These will be the metrics that we'll start to do to look at our models to see the actual scores. And what we've done here in PromptFlow is to build out different fluency scores and bring in prompts with 4 or 5 different examples to see how it actually performs. Now I'm going to go in here and view the output of these models. What we can see here is we've submitted a few different prompts into the system. And here was my questions about jackets and climbing gear and selection of tents. Here's the actual context that I brought in and also the answer that came out. All these actually were completed successfully. And now we can start seeing what is the score of each and every one of those prompts. This will give me a sense for how I'm actually tracking. And if I look at this from an overall metrics perspective for the overall flow, I can see how coherent it took, what was the duration, what was its fluency, its groundedness, and its relevance. And it's also given me how many times that it actually passed those different tests. Now, when it comes to testing and that agile LLM ops workflow, prompt flow has to be at the heart of it. And Azure AI Studio has the tools to help you evaluate those metrics, select those best models, fine tune them as needed, and to deploy those into production. Now, in the future, I'll do a much deeper dive into Azure AI Studio, but hopefully that starts to give you an idea of how to get started. And when I share the learning resources, I'll give you more information. So hopefully you enjoy those demonstrations and understand the generative AI learning journey. Now I'll give you some learning resources so you can leverage this to get a more detailed summary and description of some of this different content that we've shared, and also to help you in your readiness. The Copilot Lab is a great place to get started. And when we talk about that very first phase that we mentioned around the Microsoft 365 platform, this is where both your end users and yourself can go to start to understand what are some good prompt techniques and styles and ways of leveraging that data as needed. We can also leverage from our business perspective and our business leaders some resources that are out there on WorkLab. I think this is a very critical resource for you to start to understand, and where we'll be going into our next section is what are the different business use cases out there, and what can I start to do in my daily business and in my customers' business to help them get these productivity gains. And this is a great resource for our business leaders. And in the end, where I will conclude, is a set of resources that we will be sharing with you that'll list out all the different demos that we shared, and also some of the different guides you can use to help you in the adopt, extend, and build journey. Thank you very much, and have a good day.